Coming up next, tour the maze of Israeli party politics and the upcoming election. Who's against who and why?
The Slosberg report reaches over 2 million households, from Key West to Melbourne. Unlike the United States, Israel's political system is a parliamentary, multi-party system with one house with 120 members called the Knesset. In Israel's national election, the people vote for the party, not the politician. In order to form a government, you need 61 Knesset members, which are the Knesset members of the respective parties. Each member must vote the party line. The parties who do not join the government are the opposition. It's noontime. Nothing much doing in the Knesset. But wait until 2 o'clock. When 2 o'clock happens, Wild Wild West begins. Here's what we got here. We've got 120 members in the Knesset, and they're not elected by districts. They're elected by party. Over there is the coalition. The coalition sits with their faces towards the press. Over here, we have the opposition, and the opposition sits with their backs towards the press. In the middle there is the Prime Minister and his cabinet. The Prime Minister sits in the middle with the book open, and the chairman, who's like our Speaker of the House, sits on the far end. And what we're going to do today is we're going to go speak to the politicians, some in the opposition, some in the coalition, some in the cabinet. And we're going to find out how Israeli politics works. Likud, a centrist right-wing secular party headed by former Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It rose to power in 1977 with the successful selection of Menachem Begin. He was the leader that led Israel to peace with Egypt. Likud is a national liberal, by and large secular party. Its platforms and goals are: it's committed to the peace process, but only peace with security. It supports and advocates a capitalist free market economy, creating equal opportunities for the poor. Jerusalem is the eternal, undivided capital of the State of Israel. No compromise on Jerusalem.
We are the only big party in Israel that really has a realistic point of view on the Middle East. We stand for Jerusalem. We stand for a strong Israel as the best guarantee, not only for our survival, but also to bring about peace to this region.
Labor Party, one of the leading major parties in Israel, formed and led by one of Israel's legendary founding fathers, David Ben-Gurion. Today, Labor has only 19 seats in the Knesset. It's headed by former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, a former Chief of Staff and Defense Minister in the Olmert government. Its platforms and goals are: ready to give up territory with large Arab population and establish permanent secure borders. Socialist economy based on a free market, but with government intervention and regulation to ensure that wealth is equally spread among all. Advocates separation of religion from state.
Labour Party stands for what we call these days social democracy, which is not a very well-known term in America.
Right.
But more or less along the models of social democracies in Northern Europe, like Sweden, the idea is that you provide a safety net to the weaker elements in society.
We are for tough security, for seriousness, at the same time openness for the peace process. If we don't negotiate with the Palestinian, with the Syrian, we'll find ourselves soon, God forbid, with a binational state.
Kadima, a centrist party with 29 seats in the Knesset, originally formed by former Prime Minister Ariel Sharon as a new leading force in Israeli politics, succeeded by Ehud Olmert as Prime Minister after Sharon's illness. Its platforms and goals are: implementing the roadmap to peace based on maintaining secure permanent border with territorial concessions to the Palestinians to achieve peace, closing the economic gap between rich and poor, social welfare and health programs for all.
Kadima is a centrist party, and it's basically a party that was created by the moderates of Likud and moderates of Labor, who broke away from their old dogmatic parties to create a new center, which is what the Israeli public was craving for many years.
Kadima is led today by Tzipi Livni, the former minister who succeeded Ehud Olmert after his resignation as Prime Minister. Olmert is under investigation for fraud, but he is still prime minister. Shas, an Orthodox Sephardic religious party headed by Chairman Eli Yishai, established by leading Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, the spiritual leader. Currently, it has 12 members in the Knesset. Shas is a critical party to establish any stable government. Its main goals: demanding a change in budget priorities, allocating funds to those below the poverty level as a top priority in the budget. Jewish Orthodox laws must encompass all aspects of Jewish life in Israel. Jerusalem must be a united and undivided capital. Objects to any compromise on this issue.
ש"ס היא תנועה דתית שהזהות היהודית של מדינת ישראל חשובה לה. היא גם תנועה חברתית שמייצגת את השכבות החלשות, מייצגת את הפריפריה, מייצגת את המובטלים, את הקשישים, כל החלשים בחברה הישראלית.
Israel and its parties are thrown into early elections in February because Shas refused to give in on its demands to increase the poor family welfare budget and refused negotiation on Jerusalem. Why elections now?
Only because of pettiness. I basically believe...
Pettiness?
Yes, pettiness.
So we have elections because there's pettiness?
Of course. What do you think politics is all about?
Prime Minister Olmert has entered into major legal difficulties and possible indictment. Labor's chief, Ehud Barak, has demanded that he be replaced within the Kadima party. Kadima has held its elections. Tzipi Livni was elected. Prime Minister Olmert resigned, and according to the law, she had to form a coalition, and she didn't succeed.
In our parliamentary system, it's a system that doesn't define that we have an election by definition every 4 years, but rather once the government loses its majority within the parliament, then we have to go to the public.
I must say that after this election, I'm more worried about the country than politics.